read and give in-depth analysis on some of the stories making waves across Nigeria. And this morning I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with federal government's failure to make fresh offers stalls wage talks as Labour eats back at Akpabio over allegation of economic sabotage. Says real saboteurs are political elites looting, abusing power. Urges patriotic National Assembly members to disown Senate presidents. Nigerians need living wage, not minimum wage. That's according to reps. Condemn Labour for shutting down national grid. And accompanying that story is a picture of Usifo, Jairo, and Akume. You can see that story on page 5 of Vanguard newspaper. On page 20, government plans a 6.6 trillion naira supplementary budget to fast-track economic growth. To unbundle, commercialize TCN. ASAP recommends 20 executive orders to fast-track economy. On pages 4 and 9, United States lawmakers petition Biden over Binance executive are wrongfully detained by Nigeria. Binance will face all due process on charges of severe financial crimes. That's according to federal government. And according to Olufason, traditional institutions in Nigeria have not always covered themselves in glory. The rivalry, bitterness, corruption, politicking, intrigues, etc., that usually precedes the selection and appointment of traditional rulers are beyond belief. On sport, page 30, look who is here. Lookman's arrival excites eagles. Stories above the banner on page 19, oil price drops below budget benchmark as output stagnates. Edoguba, why some politicians are angry with Obaseki, that's according to Martins. Igodalo's opponents are running out of campaign ideas. That's according to PDP chieftain. You can see that on page 7. On page 8, Kaduna Assembly. El-Rufai tango over alleged diversion of 423 billion naira. Lastly, on Vanguard newspaper, on page 21, business economy. Nigeria will witness positive change after sacrifice. That's according to the Vice President of Nigeria, Shatima. Now, the Guardian newspaper. Guardian is leading with cautious optimism as federal government unveils new fiscal deals to revive economy. You can see that on page 6. On page 4, insecurity hampers rescue of trapped Niger miners. I have no regrets proposing full county autonomy, says Attorney General. In fact, you can see that on page 5. Kaduna Assembly indicted Rufai for 423 billion naira graft, others arrest. You can see that on page 30. Court orders substituted service on Ganduje in bribery case. That can be seen on page 30 still on Vanguard News over the Guardian newspaper. Now the Punch is leading with a minimum wage. Finance Minister submits template to Tinubu today, and you can see that on page 2. And tripartite committee awaits a template to resume negotiation 2 p.m. on Thursday. Customs intercept 3.9 billion naira pangolin scales in KB. And 25 suspected killers of Oyo Varsity student arraigned. $413 bribery Ganduje to get charges through newspaper. Stories above the banner. Heritage Bank NDIC goes after 700 billion naira loan defaulters, lists 2.3 million depositors. Tinubu may suspend import duties on food and drugs. You can see that on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. And lastly, the Nation is leading with El-Rufai Forta report of alleged 423 billion naira fraud. Lawmakers send findings of probe panel to anti-graft agencies. You can see that story on page 2. And right above the banner, we have Heritage depositors to get 650 billion naira immediately. Sun list 86 standard for CNG buses and others. Court orders for feature of 11 billion naira properties links to Emefiele. You can see that on page 41 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the daily list this morning. Join us after the break for the analysis. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today Videos on Vanguard Live. My name is Damilola Ogunshaki. To analyze the front pages with us this morning is Mr. Oludari Mayowa. Is a publisher of Global Financial Digest. Good morning, Mr. Mayowa.
Good morning, Daniela. I'm delighted to be here this morning.
Thank you for joining us. And let's go straight to the stories this morning. And of course, we're still talking about the minimum wage. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Tuesday gave a marching order to the Minister of Finance to and the coordinating minister, Mr. Wali Edun, to prepare cost implications of the new minimum wage. Now, but the failure of the federal government negotiating team to present a fresh offer beyond the 60,000 rights offered last week has stalled further negotiations. What do you think about this?
Thank you very much. If you have fight back on our talks on the minimum wage, so the last Thursday, for example, I advocate between 60 to 100,000 as minimum wage for this country. And anything above that one probably will upset the system, upset the system really. And I'm not sure many. When we're looking at minimum wage, it's a benchmark for wages in both the public sector and private sector. And when we look at it down the line, how many public sector can even pay 6,000 today? I think what the labor should be advocating really is negotiating for is not really increase in wages per se. Yes, 30,000 is very little as a base minimum payment for workers. What they be advocating is to look at how they can benchmark the payment of both the civil servants, the public sectors, and including the political office holder on the basis of the benchmark. If, for example, the government have put 60,000 as a minimum wage for the country, it should apply to political office holder as well, including the president himself. That's where we're going to have a very equitable share of the national resources. And that's where I look at it. I just allocating so much. Because immediately you increase the wage, either to 60,000, to 40,000, to 50,000, inflation will go up in the same proportion. Because those people in the informal sector will want to take their own portion of the minimum wage from the system by hiking the price of their goods and services and the big gross one. So we want to cope with inflation. The junior should be, for me, in my own opinion, should rather be fighting for government to cope with food inflation by eliminating banditry, terrorism in the forest, and encourage farmers to go back to farm and establish large farm settlement for people to farm to increase food in this country, so that can crash the food prices in this country. These are the major cause of inflation in Nigeria today. And when we have lower inflation, the cost of things will go down. What you need money to buy, like so we're buying food for 1,500, 1,800. Probably the price will go to around 1,800 or 1,000 or 800, and you need a volume of money to go to the market and buy things. Then your wages will have meaning and will have value. And these are things I expect people to be advocating and fighting rather than asking government to pay 470,000 as minimum wage, which is not realistic for me.
But many people are of the opinion that 100,000 naira will actually not be too bad to pay as minimum wage. So, do you think the federal government can actually afford this?
Is it like I said? If you look at if you, for example, pay average workers 100,000, you have to graduate to other level, to level 17. Which means geometrically the wage bill of each government will improve, will increase, and increase the bulk of the money. You can imagine a state government receiving using the allocation revenue generation to pay civil service. There's no money for capital project and the rest. Then you can imagine the inflation that will be built into this increase. Like I said earlier, if you are paying 100,000 for minimum wage for today, then what happens to small businesses that employ a sales girl, a sales boy? Are you expected to pay the same minimum wage to them? Because that's the benchmark for determining the wages in both public and private sector. Small businesses, are they going to be paying are you going to pay your mates 100,000 as a minimum wage? Because that's the government requirement. And you can see the full effect on inflation, on prices of goods and services. The market woman want to take his own minimum wage for the system. So you have to increase the price of goods and services they are offering. And you see the geometric increase in inflation. And this is not what we want in the system. Let the labor ask the government to enact fiscal policy that will bring down inflation rate from over 30% to around 15%, and let food price comes down. Let people can go to market and buy a tuber of yam for say 800, 600 naira, not a tuber of yam for 4,000, for example. And if you are buying food, a tuber of yam for 1,000, for example, then you don't need 4,000 to go to market and buy. You can buy 4 of that tuber of yam that could last you for many days. So you don't need a huge money to go to market. This is why people ask for more money, because they need a huge truckload of money to go and buy bread, to go and buy beans, to go and buy garri and the rest. But if government policy are going to bring down the prices of goods and services in the system, then we are talking about value, equitable value for goods and services. And people can be able to afford it. So in another way, we don't need increase in salary. In other words, if you have to do some of these things, and these are things I believe the labor should be fighting for, not asking for unnecessary high minimum wage.
Despite the fact that they've not been able to come or to actually reach a negotiation, the Senate yesterday approved a bill seeking to grant a 300% salary increase for judicial officers in the country. That means the president of the Court of Appeal will be entitled to 62.4 million naira annually, while the justices of the Supreme Court will earn the sum of 61.4 million naira each annually. What do you think about this?
That's the equitable distribution of wealth in this country. That's exactly what I'm saying. The labor should ensure that when the National Assembly is enacting the law on minimum wage, it will apply to everyone in the public sectors and the private sectors in such a way, so that everybody are living equitable. So if, for example, the politicians themselves, National Assemblies themselves, who are taking about 75 million salary every month, will now come down to that level. They will ensure that there are good governance in the country. They ensure that things are working properly, so that they can everyone can benefit from it. As long as there's a disparity in wages between those who are doing the work and those who are just the political office holder, people will troop into. The competition for political office holder will increase, and it become do or die affairs. Because when you are a politician, when you are appointed to public service, public office, you are guaranteed of becoming wealthy overnight. And this is very inequitable system. These are the things that the labor should tackle. Let minimum wage be applied across board for everyone in the system, so that we can have equitable distribution of wealth in the country, and there won't be agitation. And government, whenever they are doing policy, they will consider that themselves will be affected. As long as people in government are isolated from economic crisis, economic hardship in the system, then they will continue pursue policies that are not beneficial to the generality of the people. So these are things I think labor should probably focus on, rather than just asking for 100,000. I don't expect the government to pay more than 6,000 minimum wage. Agree on more than that for me as a person. I mean, that's probably based on the economic parameter. And I think the president is very wise in trying to ask the finance minister to go and produce data to back the realistic minimum wage. And I'm sure when they produce the data, all of us will be seeing it, how it will impact the system. And that's where we need to begin to use data to drive every of our activity today. Data, what will be the overhead cost when we increase minimum wage to 6,000, 20,000 to 50,000, for example. When we show the data analysis, everybody will care to everybody what will be the implication on the system, and reasonably we'll be able to know where we are going really.
But how will this salary increase impact the government's budget and also fiscal sustainability?
That's exactly what government is asking the finance minister to go and do. Produce a document that gives critical analysis to the impact of increase in minimum wages and vis-a-vis the revenue approved to government and the government fiscal policy. And I'm sure the finance ministry and the audit committee are working on that, and probably if they release to the public, it will be very clear to everyone to see the implication of what we are demanding for, and how feasible it is for government to just immediately increase the wage overnight without disrupting the system.
The federal government may soon approach the National Assembly for a supplementary budget of 6.6 trillion naira to fund the implementation of the Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan, that's ASAP, designed to advance President Tinubu's economy-related eight priorities. What's your take on this?
I think our problem is not budgeting. Young budgetary. I think that somebody was actually determining our budget system to be restructured in such a way that our budgeting apply to realistic fiscal policy. In the sense that when you are budgeting for a monument, for example, we need to have the details of how many staff you have in these ministries, agencies, and practitioners, and what are the levels of their income. Then we have to allocate resources appropriately. And the way we are just okay, we're ahead this year, just top them up. There's no breakdown, there's no data that backs some of those things up. We're talking about capital projects, and there's no data that say, okay, we are spending so much of money on roads, 2 kilometer roads. What costs, how much a 2 kilometer road consulted in the Ogun State, or something different for your state, in Ogun State. And it's not supposed to be like that. We need to have a realistic database projection so that our budgeting will be realistic, it will be data driven, so that people will know that we are getting value for money. But what we are seeing in government, as government job projects a bogus amount of money for projects, and what of the money are stolen from the system because there's no accountability, there's no auditing of the system. So I think there's a need for restructuring of government systems in such a way that, for example, like I was telling somebody recently, the electricity distribution company, if they are truly private sector, I look at the data produced by NEC recently, how some electric distribution companies are rejecting power supply, where they are blackout in so many places. And if their income revenue, their revenue is what they base on their expenditure on, then they will do much more than what they are doing today. And because they can do away and still get money through the back door and export system, so we can see them rejecting power supply when the bulk of the people are in that place. So we must have a realistic way of budgeting in this country so that we are not hearing trillions of naira being budgeted. We are not trillions of dollars naira being borrowed from the system, and we are not getting value for money. And that's what we have been experiencing since 1999, since the advent of this democracy. There must be data-driven policy, budget, fiscal policy, whereby that each kobo, each naira that government is spending is targeted at a particular area to create improvement, and it can be very clear to everyone to see that if we are getting value for money. But bringing supreme budget in the middle of the year, for me, as I said anything, what happened to what they have budgeted previously? How far have they gotten half-year report review of the budget? How far have they gone with the budget? And what are the revenue accrued to the government? What are the money allocated so far? What are the value we have created with those which resources we have dispensed? If there's no data for that, there's no statement for that or review for that, then bringing supplementary budget is of no use. It's part of it. It's about the political officers that are stealing our money and the people getting poorer.
All right, let's move away from that. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation has announced that it will pay out insured deposits to depositors of the different Heritage Bank who have 5 million naira or less in their accounts. And NDIC was appointed liquidator of the bank by the CBN, said it will ensure the payment is done within 1 week. What's your take on the decision of NDIC and also Heritage Bank?
NDIC is created to cushion the impact of field bank on customer and depositors. And so what it means that if you put your money in bank, either the bank is exists or collapse, you are sure that you get your money deposit back. That is what the NDIC, they call them the depositors insurance. That's insurance for depositors. So you have company to put your money in bank, knowing fully well that they have a company, a corporation backing you up, that if the company bank fail, you get your money back. But we need to go beyond deposit insurance in such a way, because any liquidation or revocation of a commercial bank in the country undermine the confidence in the system. And what is the work of the NDIC and the CBN is to ensure that banks comply with the regulation and the rules of the system. And over time, Heritage Bank, and many other banks in the system today have been flouting the rules and not been operating in line with regulations, and yet they were pampered, or they were probably overlooked. And there's no, once any failed bank is indictment on the CBN and the NDIC, who send their supervisor regularly to these institutions to ensure that they maintain stability and ensure they use usually the deposit they collected from depositors. So for a bank to fail, for CBN and the NDIC to wait for a bank to fail before they revoke the license and then trying to pay back the deposit, it's not good for the system. It undermines the confidence in the system. And I want to enjoin the CBN and the NDIC to ensure that supervision of these banks are strict, so that it can detect the stress in the system within some place, so that they're able to remedy it in a way that they change the management, that they restructure the banks in such a way that they ensure that they continually remain on going concern. And these are things that I advocate that the regulators should do, rather than just wait till the last minute and the banks fail after they have been bankrupt and close them down and put depositors in limbo. You can imagine people who have their deposits in a NJ Bank, for example. They have to wait till what it takes out NJ to audit their account and ensure how much they are going to pay. And the gap, whereas maybe that's the only bank account you have, maybe that's the only money you depend upon. You can't have access to your money until these decisions are taken before you can have access to your money. And it's not good for the system. It undermines confidence, and the regulator should do more to ensure stability in the system.
All right, let's quickly talk about this one. During the 2024 Vanguard Economic Discourse that was held in Lagos, the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, said Nigeria will begin to witness positive change next year while seeking for endurance from the people to allow government reform policies to generate the needed growth and development of the company. Now, my question is, what specific reform policy has the government implemented or plan to implement that are expected to drive the positive change in the economy?
Government officials, they look for optics, just to stand by, to just, we have had these stories as long as I can remember. Government say, we are restructuring, we are building the foundation. 1999, Obasanjo was building the foundation. Yar'Adua was building the foundation, and Jonathan was building the foundation. Buhari was building the foundation. Now Tinubu is building the foundation. When are we going to have a structure in place? So these are just fabulous statements by public service. You are saying until 3 years to your 4-year tenure, that people can see relief of what used to be electing a government which was supposed to serve for 4 years, and people are willing to the 3rd year of their tenure to actually see semblance of good governance. No, we should be able to enjoy the dividend of democracy for the 1st year of your tenure. And if you have enacted the right policy, you have put the right policy in place and right strategy in place, people will not be groaning. For example, President Tinubu has the golden opportunity to make this country great from May 29, 2023. But he went to the podium without any research, without any data, without any policy enunciation, and announced subsidy is gone and caused major destruction in the system. In a decent society, a government will not take any major step, any major policy without critically analyzing it, without critically putting in place policies that will ameliorate the negative impact on the people. Not that just went to the public and make public announcements that will disrupt the entire. That statement alone on May 29, 2023, with the repercussion of what we are facing today. If Tinubu has actually thought through his decision and his statement, he would have made that statement. Yes, we all agree that subsidies ought to go, but there should be a thought through process, a policy enunciation that you say, okay, if we take something away from the people, these are things we are used to ameliorate the pain on them, and to stabilize the system. We won't have this kind of massive destruction we have. We have seen inflation going from 18 to 33 over 33% in 1 year. It's not good for the system. Anywhere such inflation is occur, it causes major destruction, it causes major hardship. Look at the margin of chain rate too, from 450 to 1,500. It's not done anywhere. We all agree that you make the chain rate, but there's a system to this. Government need to think through their policy. Yeah, we want to do this. How can we do this policy, implement this policy without disrupting the system, without causing maximum pain to the people? But we have seen this happen, that government just went ahead and announced the system, and we have a major destruction. So that was like said, to pull down the structure that was probably defective without actually analysis. Either we need to pull down the whole structure or just repair part of it that is defective. And now you are now beginning to say you want to rebuild it without taking away the rubbles. But if you want to rebuild a collapsed building, you have to take away the rubbles and probably do the test. Probably what led to the destruction. But this government are not seeing that happen now, or probably they are not really bringing it out until we are seeing that 2025 is a long period for people to wait, because the pain is very severe on people.
Mm-hmm. So, talking about these, let's just end this on the lighter notes with Mr. and Mrs. this morning. And the first person speaking is Mr. Mr. says, I will do everything you want, but you have to be patient. One proverb says, with patience, one can boil stone to become soft. Mrs. says, with increase in price of gas and kerosene, look for another proverb.
That's the thing. How long? Why do you need to boil stone to soft? What do you need that for? What impact does that have for you? Because sometimes patient does not have reward in a system, like somebody said that a proverb you said, a person that's hungry, it doesn't listen to any message, it doesn't listen to any preaching or sermon. What he wants is food in his tummy or her tummy, in a way. So there are things you can preach patient for people. But when it comes to basic things, basic needs of life, like food, like shelter, like clothing, people don't. How long will they wait to walk in nakedness, to go hungry? Probably they will die before the food comes. So that's why we need to really encourage people to do more, to ensure that we have government ameliorate the pains of the people, so that we don't have to wait for. You don't have to wait for the good roads, but to wait for infrastructure. People can enjoy that because we have been enjoying that over the years. But waiting for food to be eaten, and because people cannot afford the cost of food today, why do you have to boil stone? You know that kind of thing. For me, the message is very clear, not only to marriages, is to the society as a whole and people in government, to recognize that the patience of people are very inelastic, and they need to do something very urgently. So I commend the cartoonists for good work done.
Thank you, Mr. Oludare, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me today, and have a lovely day.
And you too. And as a publisher of Global Financial Digest, it just analyzed some of the stories we told this morning. Now you can visit our website, www.vanguardnjr.com. Our Facebook, Instagram, our Twitter, TikTok, they're all showing on your screen. You can visit there to get more of our top stories. My name is Damlola Okunshaki. Have a lovely Thursday.